look at the coherence of that energy and the heart and the brain, it's that relationship. Let me go back to the electromagnetic center around the heart, and it's 60 times greater. One of
Well,
the
and
things
this is
that,
also, I never knew. I thought there was also always more signals going from the brain to the heart, and then to learn that the heart is actually sending way more signals to the brain, so its field. Anyway, sorry, continue.
yeah, what I mean, we were all taught that, but basically, when it's sending that signal, the around the heart, the pericardium, the sac that's around the heart, we have over 4,000 neurites. Now, what is a neurite? A neurite is like a neuron in the brain. It can think, it can give commands, it can do. The field that we generate is actually coming from around the heart, and so when we are looking at that vibration, putting that field together, when whatever we are thinking, whatever we're saying, whatever we're doing is generating the coherence of that energy in the let me bring up a different slide here as long as we're talking about this. Get my mouse to work here.
Because it's like Dr. Fannin, also when you did the research for the bars, like I also, it's fascinating that you can actually quantify that the like 63% of participants were in an emotional or physical transition, and that you can actually see that.
Yeah.
Like
Now we use this to
wow.
and scan people, and we can look at that. Now let's talk a little bit about, because you make a very, very important point here, and that is that when we look at, and I got these from Bruce Lipton. Bruce is a good friend of mine, and he gave me these slides. So when we look at ripple A and ripple B, we'll call it thought A and thought B. And so we're looking at the energy. So that energy is vibrating. So we have one thought, we have another thought is vibrating the same way. Now, when that energy comes together, and these aren't real numbers, these are just to illustrate a point here. When we look at the apex of the energy wave here, and we see that it is a +1, and the trough of the energy is down here at a -1. So when we look at wave B, the green one here, and we can see that the energy wave is going in the same direction, and we call that that it is in phase. The energy is in phase, and so it begins to amass that energy. And so this is again going back to how we create our own reality of amassing that energy. So we're looking at the energy frequency, and then as we hold that for 68 seconds, then it's going to change and affect particle matter. And again, that's how we create our own reality. Now, let's look at the other side of this thing, and that is that when we look at the energy out of phase, and what does that mean exactly? So when we look at the red one here, we see here is the apex of the energy, and the green one here is going in the opposite direction. Now we've got this push-pull thing that's going on here. So if our brain is saying, I want more money, I want more money, that's the thinking part of our brain doing the desiring. And so then it has to run down to the subconscious, say, oh, what's our rule about money? And so wherever it got that rule, and actually some of these rules are being developed in the third trimester of when we're being conceived. So maybe the rule is you don't deserve more money, but that's what you're actually broadcasting into the field. So you're pushing away the very thing that your brain is trying to attract into it. So we have this, so what it's doing is it's canceling that energy out. So when we go down here and we look at those things like the neurites around the heart, the 4,000 neurites, and those are generating this field around our heart, and then we create this torus in about 3 feet in all directions here. And so when we get in the proximity of another individual, our field is talking to their field. The question is, what are they talking about? Right. So if they're talking about worry or negative things or whatever, and this is what is astounding about the bars. So if you had a bars session, and and most people can attest to how good they feel after a bars session, then what is the energy, that the message that you're putting out there? The good feeling of that. So what are you going to be attracting? More of the same thing, you know? And
Yeah.
so I can understand why you would want to do like 45 days of the bars, and we can do our own little scientific study here to see what's actually going on. Because one of the things I can do nowadays is I can look at your brain in 3 dimension, and we can see what's actually going on in different parts of the brain and different frequencies, all of this stuff. So doing brain mapping was fun, but that is so antiquated to me now, because
Wow.
we can do all of this stuff with really anybody anywhere. Let me throw this in, as long as we're talking about the coherence of energy and around the electromagnetic center of the heart. When we lack the coherence, this is when we have the sympathetic nervous system is ramping up, when we get anxious, overwhelmed, or whatever it is, that it is sending that signal up to the brain through the vagus nerve here, and causing the neural peptides for anxiousness, for fear, for anger, whatever it is. Now, we need to have the coherence of the energy from our parasympathetic nervous system. So when that sympathetic is ramping up and we need to bring that back down, let me see if I can find this example here. Yeah, here it is. So many people in the military or first responders are trained in how to manipulate this energy. And so, wait a minute, got the wrong one here. Here's the one I want. So here is a police officer that's entering into a domestic violence scene. And so on the left-hand side, we can see their heart rate. And
Wow.
so we see that their normal heart rate is about 83, 84, something like that. And on the bottom, the x-axis down here is time. So all of this takes place over about 30 minutes. So as he gets closer in the domestic violence scene, we see his heart rate going up and up and up and up and up until it gets to be about 185, 186. His heart's just pounding, and so it's sending these signals up. Now, this only lasts for about 6 or 7 minutes here. Now, what would normally happen during that 6 or 7 minutes? Our body is producing the cortisol to keep that up there. But because they learned how to manage that energy, they are then able to bring that heart rate back down in a matter of a few minutes and not suffer the effects of that cortisol. Now, why is that important? That cortisol that is being generated in their body, our adrenal glands sit on top of our kidneys. And so when we have adrenal burnout, it's because they have been driven too hard for too long, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, absolutely.
And so this is about, again, managing that energy. Where do you want this to go? When we're ramping up from the sympathetic nervous system, going through the heart and bringing in the corresponding parasympathetic nervous system and balancing that out. It's getting it to balance. So these are the mechanisms that we are dealing with physically, and so the question really becomes, one, is your energy coherent? And when you're putting that energy out there, what are you projecting?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And this totally parallels like just the awareness of this is one of the access tools. Who does it belong to? Because it's like we are constantly aware of everything around us, and like you said, like our like cognitive brain is aware of, like, what is it, 4,000 bits of information versus the subconscious is like 40,000, right? So
Correct,
um,
yeah.
and
40
we're aware
million,
of all of that,
actually 40
whether
million. Yeah,
yeah,
40
yeah.
million per second.
and
Um,
and we're and we're aware of it, and regardless of consciously or unconsciously, it's like that information's coming in.
well, let's talk about consciousness for just a second here. We know from science that when we look at consciousness, consciousness cannot be stopped by any barrier. So
Wow.
consciousness belongs to everybody,
Wow.
everybody in the universe, whoever they are, and so it is out there. So this field that we are generating, there is a certain amount of consciousness that is going on. So if you have that positive vibration of what's going on, and that's what you're putting out there, that is the message that you're sending to people. So it's more of an unintended message. You're getting the bars because it feels good, But the unintended message is that's what you're putting out there. And that's what you're giving to people, even though you don't know that you're giving it because of consciousness. Does that make
Wow.
sense?
Yes, and what a gift. Like, holy cow,
Yeah.
what a gift. Yeah.